me know if it's good. I'll check. UFC 301, and we are back in Rio, the home of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, known to be a really violent place for mixed martial arts in general. But this town, this city, amongst any in the world, has produced the best fighters. And we're going to be talking about 301 Pantoja versus Steve Erceg, breaking it down. My name's Sai, and I'm joined today with Callum Sanderson. So he's over from the Sanderson Show. So thanks again, Callum, for jumping on. Thanks for being able to do this breakdown with me. Where we can actually look into some of what I think to be quite interesting matchups.
No, thank you so much for having me. Real pleasure and an honor to be on your channel. So thank you so much. And yeah, I think this could be a sleeper card. Not necessarily the biggest in names, but I think these are usually the cards that throw up a few surprises. So I'm intrigued to see how it pans out on the night.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised. I mean, what UFC 300 is not even that far in the rear mirror window. A couple of weeks back, and we were spoiled, rotten, to be honest, for an event like that. So look, we can't have it all. You can't have it all. But it seems like there's a few apple carts in this one. I mean, of course, Pantoja being one of them. But you could look a little bit lower and then think that maybe Caio Borralho is a bit of an apple cart himself as well.
Yeah, completely agree. And I think I'm glad you brought up 300 because I think automatically people are saying, well, 300, look how bad 301 is. But I mean, which card in the history of the UFC is compared to 300? So I think we as fans, we have to kind of take a step back and go, well, UFC put absolutely everything into that event. It's impossible for them to do it again. And let's be honest, they kind of tried because Pereira, barring the broken toes, would have turned around for this event, for example. So
yeah.
I think you just sit there sometimes, you appreciate the fighters in front of you and you just let them fight and see what comes of it. But yeah, I do agree. I think, yeah, the Paul Craig fight is going to be very interesting. But I'll be honest, the Pantoja Erceg fight is the one that really has me pondering because it's not often you see a contender so low down in the rankings going for a title shot. And sometimes the fear of, well, the unknown is what startles some of these fighters and upsets are there to happen.
Yeah, exactly. Like this is a sport of MMA and anything can happen. Honestly, it really can. I would, for one, had been pretty sold on Pantoja getting a job done, but watching a few promotional content earlier and just hearing the amount of people who said Steve said can't, that kind of, it triggered me in a way thinking, oh, but what if he can? You know what I mean? Just when enough people say that you can't do something, I'm starting to become a believer and think, oh, well, the backlash generally kind of works for me. You know what I mean?
I completely agree. Completely agree.
Well, let's have a look at the card then, shall we? I'm going to press this button here and I should be able to get a view up of the event. So it's a decent poster. We'll start from like the bottom and we'll go all the way up. A real quick one from you now while we're having a full bird's eye view of it all. What for you do you think would be a potential fight of the night?
I think it could be the Paul Craig fight versus Borralho. I think that could be it. Paul Craig has this knack of just getting into exciting fights sometimes with exciting finishes, and he like sometimes you're looking at him and thinking, oh, he's out, he's done, and then the next thing you know, he's dislocating Jamal Hill's elbow or he's tapping someone out or Ankalaev. So
Ankalaev, right?
Yeah. So it's going to be, I'm looking forward to that fight. But I also, Pantoja, I mean, I can't remember the last time he was in a boring fight. I know he sometimes dominates fights, but you would never say they're boring. He's so well-rounded as a fighter. So if he can get Erceg to fight near his level, then that's going to be an amazing main event as well.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're not wrong about that. But whilst you actually touched on Paul Craig, I mean, while we're at that part of the card now, so we can quickly run through the stats and look at it. But it's we got in the red corner, of course, the Scottishman, 17-7-1, and in the blue corner, it's Caio Borralho, who's 15-1. And there's no big differences here other than the height of Paul Craig. He's going to be the taller fighter, and he's going to have that reach advantage just by 1 inch, so it's not like going to be massive. But yeah, this is another orthodox southpaw matchup for Paul Craig. So the last one he had was against Muniz. He was utilizing the outside leg position and blasting those body kicks in that fight. He did that pretty well. But that was his, I think that was his debut as well, wasn't it, in the middleweight division?
Yeah. That came after the Johnny Walker fight, if I'm not mistaken. He decided to drop down in weight, and everyone, when he first said it, everyone was like, "How on earth is he going to make 185?" Because he wasn't a big 205. He was quite a big 205er, and it didn't seem like he had a lot of fat to lose, but he made the weight really well, looked really healthy, and got a really good victory.
Yeah. I
His
personally
last,
think his striking actually improved since he stepped down to middleweight. I kind of liked it. I
yeah,
mean,
same. I agree.
my
I
question for
think
you
the
would be
mention of the body
actually,
kicks.
sorry, go on.
No, the mention of the body kicks as well is such an
Mm,
efficient weapon to use from an orthodox to a southpaw fight, or
yeah.
vice versa, because you've got so much of the body to aim for, as opposed to if
Yeah.
you're both southpaw, both orthodox. So smart tactics employed in that fight.
This is true, yeah. Actually reckon we'll come back to that again and later on in the card, another sort of orthodox southpaw matchup.
Mm.
But for this one, like, do you think that the move to middleweight was a smart choice for Paul Craig? Then do you reckon it's something that is it too early to tell? Maybe it is 1-1 at the moment, but do you reckon it was smart?
I do, because I think ultimately he wants to win a belt, and I don't think he would have got there at 205. And I think
Mm,
with his height, his reach, his jiu-jitsu, and you kind of look at the top of that division, they're mainly strikers there. So you think if he can maybe get past a few of the fighters and get to some of the top fighters, his jiu-jitsu, his wrestling might come in to be an advantage for him. So I do think it's a smart move, and he's quite a bit bigger than a lot of these middleweights as well.
yeah, yeah, this is true. Yeah, and I think I quite like the fact, yeah, getting away from the power. The power, he was a bit chinny, wasn't he, at that weight class, and it's less risky when you move down.
Yeah.
It did work all right. But I guess what he is notoriously known for, if not his stand up historically, it's really just been his ground game, hasn't it? Like he's made the biggest paychecks off his back, like a well paid sex worker, is what I always say. But you know what I mean? The thing is, though, my wonder is he probably might think twice about going down against this budding Brazilian jiu jitsu artist in Caio Borralho, though. What do you think? You think it'll be like a stand-up striking kind of thing, or do you reckon he would back himself on the ground even against Caio?
I think Paul Craig will back himself against absolutely anyone in the world with his
Yeah,
jiu-jitsu, and that may come to his detriment in this, because Kai is brilliant, as you said, but I think Paul Craig's got so much confidence in his jiu-jitsu that I almost feel as though he may even try and initiate just to try and prove a point, and I think that's where it could become very interesting.
or dangerous.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Although one thing about Paul Craig, he's practically that meme, isn't it? It's that meme where it says, "Quick, call an ambulance, not for me, for you."
yeah,
Do you know what I mean? That's exactly him. He's that meme all over.
literally.
Jamal Hill would tell you.
Yeah.
Oh man, but yeah, looking at some of those numbers there for like the grappling accolades of these guys, takedown accuracy is fantastic for the likes of Caio Borralho. The thing with Craig, you notice he doesn't really initiate the grappling so much, or didn't in at light heavyweight. He kind of accepted it or pulled guard rather than sort of looking to drive for the hips. Caio Borralho is a little bit more, dictating where the fight takes place, whether he wants it standing or on the ground. And in the striking between these guys, it's pretty even on significant strikes, I'd say, around the halfway mark. But landed per minute is a little bit more for Caio Borralho. He's got that output. But yeah, I mean, like I said, Paul Craig works off of his back. So how much throwing hands would there be in that position, per se?
Yeah.
Yeah. But man, yeah, it's an interesting matchup. I quite like the likes of Caio Borralho's stand up as well in this. I've watched some of his recent fights. He's quite athletic, to be fair. He's a budding middleweight with a lot of hype. Currently, he's undefeated in the UFC. So this kid is, as I was saying earlier, one of the apple carts on the card. But one thing I wanted to look at, because when I was looking at the history of both, or looking at the success, looking for these patterns as to why, Bear Jew's been getting the wins that he's been getting. Get this right. He seems to win the fights where he's not supposed to, and he loses the ones which he should have won. So we know that much. But one thing does remain consistent is all of his recent fights where he has won have been against the less experienced UFC fighters. So people with like less than 6 fights in the UFC. Could be a bit superstition, I guess. But do you think Borralho is going to be experienced or smart enough to not get sucked into fighting a kind of Paul Craig fight?
It's really difficult to say, because on the surface, you're right. It does seem as though he's catching these inexperienced guys, but when you actually watch the fights and you actually see it, the guys he looks like he's hurt and really out of it. So you're one of these fighters, and you think, I've actually got him hurt here. I'm going to finish the fight, but he
Yeah,
has. It seems as though he's got
it's a possum.
miraculous powers of recovery, and then you're in his guard thinking, okay, I'm safe. And then the next minute, you know, he's wrapped you up in a triangle or an
Yeah.
armbar. So on the surface, you're absolutely spot on. It looks as though these inexperienced guys are falling for traps, but I don't even know if he's setting these traps on purpose. I think he's surviving. And because of his ground game being so good, he's able to manipulate the situation into his favor. But again, is he fighting someone? He's never fought a grappler as good as this. Someone as well, never, not never, but in this current situation,
Yeah.
like Jamal Hill's not a grappler, and
Yeah.
Kalaev is a good wrestler, but you wouldn't say he's a great jiu-jitsu guy. So
Mm,
Borralho is, and
he
I think
is.
that's where the danger could come because Borralho might see him hurt if he gets him hurt and go, "Oh, I am nowhere to be safe," and still continue to make and land damage. So I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
that's where the key to victory could potentially be. But again, if Paul Craig can surprise him with some of the striking and even maybe initiate some of the takedowns as well and
Mm,
land on top, then it could be very dangerous for Kai as well.
yeah. And that's one of those things as well, isn't it? It's what does a Paul Craig fight look like? Well, actually, historically, it looks like a fight where you're winning, but you don't. Do
Yeah,
you know what I
yeah.
mean? So
It's crazy.
it is. It is nuts. It is nuts. Well, let's get into some of the gauges then. Let's look at what happens when we get the fighters up and just try to separate these guys by striking, grappling, power, speed, or cardio. So if I was to ask you who out of these two is going to have the striking advantage, who do you reckon that would be? Is it going to be Paul Craig or do you reckon it'll be Kai Borralho?
I'm going to say Kai. I
Kai.
think Kai's got a striking advantage here.
All right, we'll give that a tick in the blue corner then. And then what about grappling? Now, I don't mean to do this to you. It's a bit cruel, but
Yeah.
who's got the edge, or if anything, who's gonna want to be using it more in this fight?
I think Paul Craig will want to use it more. I'm going to give him the edge there.
Yeah, in grappling for Paul Craig.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Only
okay.
just though.
Yeah. I mean, it's tight. It's tough with this one. You'd probably
Yeah.
give it to both. And
Yeah.
power. I mean, I've been guilty of calling Kai Borralho a tryhard because he's been fighting so many fights to a decision, which seen and I believe he could have finished, and it frustrates me. It just makes things look harder than they should be. They should be. So I don't know. He's a bit of a decision merchant, isn't he?
He is. It's weird though. He does have power. You're right. There's some fights where you look at and he's had people hurt and he just doesn't really
Doesn't get him
put his,
out there.
yeah, he doesn't put his foot on the gas. Which again I understand because the aim's to win, but at the same
Yeah,
time, if you want to climb the rankings quickly, you get these people out of there, especially if you know
absolutely.
you can. I'm actually going to go power advantage. Paul Craig.
Okay. Yeah, I'm
Because
hearing
I
you.
think he may actually be stronger. I think he may actually hit harder. He just might not hit as accurately or as quick. But
Yeah,
I think power wise, I think I'm actually going to go Paul Craig.
Paul Craig on the power. Okay. Yeah, we'll pull that trigger. I think that wouldn't be too silly. He does have those hands. He put Munoz down, didn't he? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, he's come from a heavier weight class, so you would
Yeah.
trust he would have that power. Descending down. Speed. Who's going to be faster with speed? I would like to say Caio Borralho on that one.
Yeah. I think that's with
Yeah.
all due respect to Paul Craig, I think that's easy, Kai.
Yeah. And now it's two each side. Who gets cardio?
I'm actually going to go Kai here as well. I think Paul Craig's, we've seen him fade in the third round sometimes and kind of labor to a decision if he's in the third rounds.
Mm-hmm.
And Kai, as we said, he's kind of a decision merchant and he
Yeah.
doesn't really look tired in the third round because he's in control of the fight. So I'm going to go Kai.
Kai on that one. Okay. So we're looking at 3 for the blue corner, 2 in the red corner. Do you think that is true to where you would go on a night? Would you back Kai on the night or would you go more Paul Craig? Because sometimes I know we're looking at these gauges and we often would say it's not everything. There's an X factor that we can't quite quantify and put on and measure. Sometimes one of the fighters would have that X factor that is required to get the win. But what would you say between these two? Would you be going with what the ticks say here on the page and go with Caio, or would you go with Paul Craig?
Yeah, as much as I love Paul Craig and I'd love him to win, I would go with Kai.
Yeah.
I think that's the safer bet. And I think he's a bit more well-rounded than Paul Craig, even if he isn't as experienced.
Yeah.
So I would go with Borralho.
Yeah. I was watching the tape on this and I thought, okay, I'm going Paul Craig because following the superstition and going with basically how historically he's beaten people with less experienced. But
Hmm.
then, I was listening to some the commentators talk about and some things that he had said in like the pre-fight interviews, and he was talking about wanting to be known for his uh, being like a cerebral fighter, known for his intelligence, not just with his skill set in the octagon as well. And I
Yeah.
started looking at his fights different. I was like, yeah, okay, I'm seeing that he is a bit of an intelligent fighter. So I do think what Paul Craig requires to win is for Caio Borralho to make a mistake. I think it's going
Yeah.
to be for Borralho to really kind of play into his maybe his possum, but I think he'll be a bit smarter than that and stay safe. A bit like what Uzdemir did when they fought. He
Yes.
didn't play ball
Yeah.
and
Precisely.
cruise to a win. But yeah, man. Okay, decent. Let's get into the next fight up on the card. I think that's a good breakdown on that one. That's the first one out of the way, and we'll get to the second fight up, which is in the middleweight division again. Michel Pereira versus Ihor Potieria. Yeah, if I pronounce that wrong, I do apologize. Ihor Potieria. I believe that's right.
I think it is.
Yeah. All right, cool. So looking at this fight, we have the Brazilian up against Ihor from Ukraine. Now, what's to say other than the fact that Michel Pereira is just an exciting fighter? He comes out, does dances, the ring walk. He's exactly what the Brazilian audience want to be seeing. He's currently on a 7-fight win streak, and he's had no signs of slowing down as well. Did you know, though, this fight was actually supposed to be Pereira versus Mahmoud Makayev? Mahmoud Muradov, not Makayev, Muradov.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So he pulled out, and then obviously Potieria stepped on in. Although he was due to fight next month anyway. I do think for Potieria, this is a bit of a better matchup to what he would have had. You know that guy with the one eye?
Yeah. Yeah.
What's his name? Because that's
Oh,
the
I can't remember
Dagestani
his name.
guy.
Yeah,
Terrible,
he
brilliant
knocked
boxer.
someone out in a shopping mall as well, didn't he?
Yeah.
He's a proper savage.
he's,
Like he does not play around.
he's literally an octagon pirate. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He does not play around.
for sure, man. Honestly, but yeah, I feel like if he took Potieria took this fight, this might be a little bit better than that one. That seemed like a dangerous setup for me. But but my question really is for on Pereira's side. Do you reckon his training would have changed? When you've got someone like Muradov who potentially might engage in wrestling, if he finds it's going to be a strength against someone who strikes a lot. Do you think his training would have changed in order to be matched up against Potieria?
It may have changed, but I don't think he'd have deviated too much. Pereira is someone who seems to kind of fight his fight, not in the sense of he won't pay respect to someone else's skill set, but I don't think he'll overrate someone's skill set. I think he'll still try and do his thing. Like we've seen this guy run up a cage and do backflips onto someone. Like
Yeah,
I don't think he really minds what someone's bringing to the table as such. And yeah, I don't think it would have changed massively. Maybe some tweaks and some slight nuance changes, but nothing major in my opinion.
okay. Okay, yeah. There's some. I mean, bear in mind, this is also going to be another Orthodox versus Southpaw matchup as well.
Yeah.
And I believe, when you look at the way Pereira moves, it's kind of out around the outside. His footwork's quite key, and I think that will probably stay consistent in this as well.
Yeah.
But I don't believe there's going to be a takedown threat from Potieria. What about you? Do you think there would be?
No, I'd be very shocked. I mean, he might shoot defensively sometimes just to
Mm,
maybe like keep Pereira thinking, but I don't think he'll initiate grappling as such. I'd
yeah,
be very shocked if he did. And
yeah,
if he
yeah.
did, I think that would give Pereira a lot of confidence going
True.
forward as well.
Yeah, yeah. And let's see if he makes weight this time as well. So he came down from light heavyweight, Pateria. He did fail to make weight in his debut, and that was I'm trying to figure out who it was against now. But it was ultimately he did perform well though. He did really good. I'm actually quite surprised how big Pereira looks when he's outside of camp as well. So it's impressive that he's even to make weight, to be fair.
Yeah.
But could be an equal matchup. It could be fairly good. If you look at the physicality of the fighters, of course. But stylistically, do you think the power of the Ukrainian could probably land flush against the elusive Pereira?
Difficult to say. I mean, I'm glad you mentioned the weight because you even look at Pereira's meant to be fighting Wonderboy Thompson at 70 and then miss weight. And Thompson said, oh, well, he's not taking a fight because of what happened with Till before, which I fully rate him for.
Yeah, it's right.
But he went up in weight and then you looked at him when he was fighting at 85 and you're like, how on earth did he make 70? Like, he looked massive at 85. So I
Yeah.
don't actually think he'll be giving up that much weight, even though Peteria is coming down from
Mm.
205. I think because of that weight, I think he will be able to take Peteria's punch power and kicks if he has to. But as you said, he's very elusive in there. And because
Mm.
of his threat as well, his power, his variety of shot selection as well,
Yeah.
I don't think Pereira will be able to sit down on his punches, especially in the first
Mm.
round, because if he's too flat-footed and
Yeah.
Pereira's sort of picking him off and then does land something big, then the fight could be over very quickly. So
Yeah.
I think he'll be quite cagey from Peteria to start with. And then if he finds his range and starts to build up a bit of confidence, then I think you'll see him start to push forward and land bigger shots.
Yeah, and that's a fair point. He's got a lot of velocity as well, isn't he, with Pereira?
Mm,
When he comes in, it's really the momentum of his
yeah.
movement that adds to that punch. And he's going to be fast. He's going to be
Mm,
fast. I'll have to piece that up when we get to the gauges about it. But the UFC's not letting us extend this panel down to look a bit more into the striking numbers or the odds on this one. So kind of just got what we can see there. Aside from that, though, I do think we could probably head over the gauges with it. I do think what would be absolutely key, and I think you mentioned it there as well, is it's got to be that footwork from Pereira.
yeah.
Try find the outside leg, because the power of Ihor would only be relevant, or would only be able to be utilized as effectively is if when he's got the outside leg, and because of course it's southpaw versus orthodox,
Yeah.
he can land that punch of power.
Yeah.
So yeah, as long as Pereira stays on the outside leg, I think he's reducing the risk of being in a firing line for that. Let's go over to the gauges. We've also got some chats coming through as well. Hey guys, thanks for jumping in the chats. So we'll get them to come up on screen as well, and we can read them out. If I just press this button here, we'll be right over to the gauges. And we'll look at this. So let's get some chats up, and then we'll go through striking, grappling, power, speed, and cardio. You guys in the chats, feel free to add to that too. We've got Breezy in the house. Breezy, what's good? He says morning. It's always morning wherever Breezy is. It's always morning. Let's get up on screen. There it is. And then I've got George Mary. George Mary in the house. What's up, George Mary? How you doing, man? Good evening, Sai. And Callum. He says good evening to you too. This is Callum Sanderson from the Sanderson Show. Do you want to give us a little bit of an introduction, Callum, and a plug for the guys who are chiming in now and quite new to see?
Yeah, so well, not just saying this because I'm here, but I wouldn't say my channel's as good and as refined as yours, but I'm just building up at the moment, doing watch alongs, trying to get some interviews on there, and I've got a few ideas for the future as well, in some like fun shows I want to do, but I just want to attack MMA from a slightly different perspective. And yeah, just it's one of my biggest loves and passions. So yeah, just like chopping up on there.
Hey man, yeah. Honestly, we're so happy to have you on board, bro. Thanks for finding the time. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for sharing some of your knowledge and insight on fights as well, because it's useful for the viewers here. And as you guys in the chats know, we're not about telling you what to think. We're all about showing you how to think. So it's always good to get into the minds of those who've been about the sport for a long time. And then we've got Breezy. He's saying Shara Magomedov. Yes, that was the name of the fight I was looking for earlier. That's the one. That's the one. Thanks, Breezy. Can always rely on you. And then George Mary's in the chat. So let's go, boys, says Ashley. Good evening, Ash, says George Mary. Hello, bro. Good welcomes from everyone. And then down here, we've got George Mary chiming in again. He says, Erceg made his debut after Bilal's last fight, and he had a title shot before him.
Crazy. That is crazy.
Oh wow, that's something.
That's scary, isn't it?
Honestly, that's something. That is something. I cannot believe. That's an interesting stat to know. Wow. Wow. I was thinking, Mikhaev, feeling a bit sad for him. Like, he hadn't had an opportunity. He's not up there.
Yeah.
It would have been great for him. He's higher up on the rankings as well. But
Yeah.
fact of the matter is, Bilal Muhammad, poor guy. How long are they going to ignore him for? I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I reckon there'll be an announcement soon.
Yeah. Yeah, that has to be. Has to be. It's the elephant in the room now. It really is. Okay, striking. Let's have a look at this. Who gets a striking advantage between these two middleweights? Michel Pereira versus Ihor Potieria.
Yeah, I'm going to go Pereira. I think he's got more of a variety. And I think he'll probably be the harder hitter as well.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I would say about Potieria is his last fight, he was again in a southpaw orthodox, and And that was the name reference there from Magomedov that Breezy chucked in there. And he was really good at throwing the hook first and then sitting down on his power. And that hook kind of made sure he got the outer leg, kind of made sure that the opponent, Ihor, wasn't sort of slipping at the jab. Yeah. And then he kind of sat down on his right. So he did have the right answer for it. So, but still, it's I do like the movement of Pereira because it adds to his striking variety.
Yes.
I think he has both orthodox and southpaw stances too. So.
Yeah.
Okay, grappling. Who's going to get that?
A bit of a toss-up, this one. It's almost the opposite of the previous fight, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much.
I might slightly go Pereira again.
Yeah?
Yeah, only just. I don't think either of them are great grapplers. I've seen Pereira when he's landed and then maybe mounted someone as opposed to actually taking people down on a. I'm gonna go Pereira only just. I don't think there's much between them. I don't think either of them are great grapplers as such.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, if I think about it, I can be confident that Potieria is really going to be hands. So yeah, and in terms of using it as well, if Pereira finds himself in trouble, I think he probably will be using it a little bit more too. Power, I think we'll go Ihor on that one. Yeah. Speed, happy to sit with Pereira on that one. Yeah, cool. And then cardio, I've seen Pereira gas, but he has, like terribly, terribly badly.
But is that why he kind of again, he's not fully toned it down, but is that why he's toned down some of the flips and the tricks as well? Because that obviously is going to gas you out. But
what do you reckon, man? I think
it's a tough one because we've only seen him at 85 and he finished that fight pretty quickly. And obviously, if you're able to maintain something naturally nearer to your natural weight, your cardio in theory would be better.
Yeah.
But his cardio was so bad that I may have to go Potieria.
Yeah, fair enough. I agree. It might be. I'm sure it's improved now. I'm sure it's better now. But based on what we've seen,
it was awful.
It was, man. It really was. But there you have it. Red corner gets the advantages or the most ticks in this case. Who do you reckon? Who would you go for on the night?
I'm actually going to go for Pereira on the night.
Yeah.
I think he'll get it done. He just reminds me of a mini Johnny Walker, like the energy, the expressionism on the way they both fight. So I'm going to go with him, especially in Brazil as well. I'm going to go with Pereira.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, fair enough. I think I'll do the same. I just think that he's got an answer for Ihor. For what Ihor brings to the table. And he's on a 7-fight win streak. He's on an absolute tear. There's a lot of momentum there to see it stop. But yeah. All right, cool. And also something about me does think that they are going to want these fights to be more Brazilian people winning. It's in Brazil. So yeah, something about.
Yeah, we see it in the UK cards, to be fair. Like, they line up pretty well most of the time.
I don't complain.
Yeah, me neither.
I don't complain.
Me neither. I quite like it, to be fair.
Yeah, exactly. We don't often get it, so spoil us.
Exactly.
Spoil us. Especially if it's going to be like 4 a.m. in the morning next time. They better give us some matchups to make us, give us some gimmies.
Yeah.
So we're into what is now the third fight on the card. We're going to be looking into the light heavyweight division. It's Anthony Smith versus Vitor Petrino. So 37-19-0 for Anthony Smith in the red corner, and then 11-0 for Petrino. So he is undefeated. And the question tonight is if Anthony Smith's going to be the guy to take his O. Would be the wonder. Now, the differences here, again, is going to be slightly taller. It's going to be Anthony Smith. And then when they're coming at the reach advantages, it's going to be Petrino's going to have that little bit of an edge, but not too much to really fuss or worry about. With this fight, Anthony Smith will have the experience, I guess.
Yeah, definitely,
Yeah, you'd think he'll probably take Vitor into deep waters, like he did against Span, for example, because he's been there more often, experienced. Yeah. But Smith's also coming off of a TKO loss against Canelo Roundtree. So do you think that's going to really affect how he approaches his fight? Is he going to be quite tentative, given, of course, Petrino's quite a powerful puncher?
It's weird. I mean, I know he's not everyone's flavor of the month, Anthony Smith, because he does say some controversial things, even though I don't think he means to be controversial.
Right.
But I mean, his nickname is Lionheart for a reason. We've seen him in there getting a beating, and we've never seen him quit on himself. And he always, when he next goes into another fight, he never really doubts himself. He may not put on the performances, but I don't expect him to sort of cower away or be scared. But I think that could potentially lead to his demise in this fight.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a good point. Like they call him Lionheart for an absolute reason.
Yeah.
I do feel like his fights might be lacking a bit of something still, though. Whilst he's got the engine to keep pushing through, you just wish he would adapt a bit better.
Yeah, I mean, was it? I think it was Herb Dean, and Herb Dean pretty much saved him against Khalil Roundtree because that could have got really ugly.
Yeah.
Because Khalil, we've seen it when Khalil gets someone hurt, a switch goes off, and
He's a thug, man.
he will not
Violent.
stop until someone puts the referee in between them.
Yeah.
Like he beats you like you've literally done something to him in a past life.
Yeah.
It's scary.
He channels all of his past trauma. Like,
everything.
Yeah. I see it. It's scarily violent. It is violent, you know. At first, he's cheering on like, yeah, get him. Like, whoa, okay.
He's like, what have I wished for here? Like,
who hurt you, bro? Who hurt you?
I don't think he'll come up against Petrino being as ferocious as that, but when you're undefeated, and Michael Bisping speaks about this quite often, you just walk around with an air of invincibility and a confidence that's unmatched, especially when you're undefeated. And I look at Anthony Smith and I'm like, what's your motivation now? What's still your motivation to do this? And I can't answer it because I genuinely don't know.
That's a good point. It's a really good point. He's a gatekeeper now, I guess, isn't he?
Yeah, and he even alluded to this. I think he had an interview with I think it was Michael Heck, I think it might have been. And he was alluding to this saying, you know, I'm not a gatekeeper and this is a perfect way for me to bounce back. And I'm like, with all due respect, you kind of are a gatekeeper. Like, and I don't think that should be seen as a disrespectful thing.
We all got to play that part at some point in the career.
Eventually you will have to if you stick around long enough in this sport. But I think, is that him having confidence in himself or is that delusion? Because there's a thin line between the two as well. And we've seen him sometimes err onto the side of delusion when, you know, he speaks about he can do this to that fighter. And even when he speaks about Pereira saying, yeah, you know, he's not that big and strong. I'm like, well, I mean, his knockout power would suggest otherwise. So I don't know. I question Smith's mindset. I never question his heart, his desire, and his mentality for fighting. I question his mentality in terms of
delusional.
Does he really believe he can win this? These fights?
Yeah. I mean, let's say he does, right? And let's look at the style which he would do it. How would he do it? It's got to be in the later rounds, right? He's got to kind of drag it down there.
I mean, it has to be, but again, 3-round fight. Yeah, I mean, if he loses the first round, which I kind of expect him to, he's got to take over in some part of the second round, and then he's got to have a shutout in the third round.
Yeah.
But it all depends on how much damage, in my opinion, he takes in those first round and a half if he's going to take over later on in the fight, because if he takes a lot of damage, then he's not going to have that strength and cardio to actually take over the fight, and it could just be rinse and repeat for him.
Yeah, it could be. It could be. I'd like Petrino to really not get too gassed too soon, really, to be honest. Yeah. But otherwise, you know, you did mention how pretty perfect his record is, Petrino. I alluded to something a bit earlier about how the UFC do like to kind of give these desirable fights to the countrymen for the sake of being in front of the home fans. Do you think this is a bit of a gimme fight for Petrino? Or do you feel like Smith can be a genuine threat or genuine challenge for him?
I think he can definitely be a definite challenge because he's Anthony Smith, very durable. He's a crafty veteran as well, so he's going to throw techniques that Petrino might never have seen before. However, I think for Petrino, this is the perfect blend of someone who's experienced, someone who's a gimme fight, but also someone who's got a name as well. If he goes out there and he puts on a great performance, the rest of the lightweights have to take note because it is Anthony Smith. He might not be the most popular, he might not be the best in the division, but he's one of the bigger names. He's fought for a title. He's fought Teixeira, he's fought Walker, he's fought some of the best in that division. So if he can go out there and look good in the division, I think it puts everyone on notice, and
Yeah,
it gives the fans someone new to look at and
true.
study and potentially get behind and root for.
Yeah, yeah, if they haven't already. But of course, he'll get a number to his name, and he gets to go straight in at top 10. So it's a good step for the current budding light heavyweight who's on a 7-fight win streak, which is pretty impressive. All right, so get some gauges up. Let's have a look what we'll talk about and get some chats going as well. To see what the guys are saying in the chats. If I press that button there and then that button there, pow, we're looking down a barrel. Let's see what the chats are saying. George Murray saying good evening. Got some hellos in there. And new, says George Murray. We've got a few people in here already, and they can't wait. You guys just hold on for a moment, because when we get to the main event, I'd love to hear what you guys are saying, because a lot of people here shouting and new already. But yeah, I wonder if they could be just as deluded as Anthony Smith. We'll see. We'll see. Yeah. George Murray saying good evening to everyone. Fantastic. George Murray says, is 301 the least hyped pay-per-view in recent years beside the King of Rio and the Bear Jew? Who else is actually hyped for this? Well, this is what we're saying in the front end, George Murray, as well. I don't know if you got some comments on that, Callum, yourself, but it's really in the shadow of 300. And comparatively, you would say that, because 300 was a bit of it spoiled us.
Yeah, I think that the UFC are kind of damned if they do, damned if they don't. Sometimes I'm not one to stick up for a corporation that's about a multi-billion-pound corporation, but they got criticized because people in the lead up to 300 were saying, well, you know, that card's not looking very good, and then the card was extremely good. So one of the cards was always going to take a hit. They were building up from 297, 298, 299, and then to 300. You looked at the cards and you were saying there's a gradual build up here.
Yeah.
It was weird for me that you had so many Brazilians on 300 as opposed to 301, but
yeah,
this card was always going to take a hit, and then I think from maybe 302 you'll have another pickup again. But when you hit a peak like 300, sometimes the only way is down for a little bit and then you're back up again. But yeah, you're right. The names on this card aren't the greatest, but sometimes those are the best fights to watch, because a lot of times you can actually take bias away and just watch it and see how everything unfolds as well.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Ashley Easton chiming in here saying Sharma. George May is crying about the fact that Brazilian gets Brazilian time, but UK get who knows what time.
Oh, don't. Devastated when I saw that.
Yeah. Yes. So some comments here from George Murray saying that he loves Lionheart, but Victor is powerful. And his loss against Khalil shows the weakness in the chin, and Victor will be hunting for that once again. Some agreements there from Ash there too. And I'll piece you in.
Not to go against that chat. The reason why it's hard to say that, because I think if Khalil Roundtree lands on anyone's chin in the division, I think they all go down. I think he's that hard of a puncher. So I don't know if that's necessarily a weakness in the chin, because I just think Khalil connects with anyone. I think they all go to sleep at the least.
Yeah. At some point, you got to say the chin is weak, or you got to say that punch is hard. Yeah. You know, it's a bit cut off.
Khalil's just that guy.
Yeah. If there is going to be anyone, it'll be him, and potentially Victor Petrino as well. But let's have a look. So striking in this one, would you give it to the experienced Lionheart, or would you give it to the undefeated Vitor?
I'd give it to Petrino. Quite easily there.
Yeah, Petrino, yeah.
Yeah, I think Anthony Smith can be quite stagnant in his striking sometimes, and the fight passing by sometimes because he throws the same techniques and they become telegraphed. I don't think he necessarily adapts very well. You alluded to that as well.
Yeah, exactly. And then grappling, would that? I think if it's going to be anyone, would you give it to Lionheart?
Yeah, Smith there.
Yeah, and power, Petrino. Speed, I'll probably go Petrino again.
Yeah, it's not slow, but yeah, probably Petrino again.
And then cardio, I would actually like Smith. Yep, agreed. Yeah, we agreed on that one as well. There's a gauge that suggests that 3 in the blue corner for Petrino. I will probably side with that on the night as well.
Yeah.
In all fairness.
Yeah.
I
think this is a bit of a layup for,
Yeah, I think it's a good fight for him. It can do a lot for him, and it's going to be a good fight for the fans too. So I think that's why they got it there too. George Mary says in the chats, he says, "Sai, want to do another 32 bet?" So for the watch along this weekend, I'd have to get in the number 32 on my local Chinese menu, because for 300, the co-main with Jinan and Weili Zhang, we basically said who in China is going to be victorious. But if Weili Zhang won, then he buys me a Chinese. And if Jinan won, then I'll buy him a Chinese. So we picked something on the menu, and number 32 at the local Chinese is is what he's buying me for this pay-per-view event coming up.
I like it.
He wants a chance to get his own back there as well. So, all right, we'll do it. We'll find a fight. Let me know your most confident pick, George Mary, on this card, and I'll give you mine. And then we'll go up against another 32, or maybe do a 31, given it's 301. I don't know. Give that a go. All right, let's get the next card up, and we're going to be looking down the barrel of what is the co-main and the return of the King of Rio, Jose Aldo. So bantamweight division, you've got Jonathan Martinez is 19-4-0 in the red corner. Then you've got Jose Aldo with 31-8-0. This guy is a veteran. Don't be mistaken. He's been in there for years, and with some of the best strikers, he's been in there with some of the best fighters in and outside of Brazil. And he's coming back for one last stunt as well, one last stint, one last time. One might only question what his motives really are. Any big differences there? It's not obvious on the card, on the tail of the tape. But one thing we do know is this fight is probably going to be won with the leg kicks, Yeah.
I mean, we saw against, who did he fight last? Martinez.
Martinez.
Oh, Yanez.
Yeah, Adrian Yanez.
And he stopped him with leg kicks. And that was one of the most brutal fights I've seen for just leg kicks.
Yeah, it was a little...
it was really hard to watch. And
it certainly was.
I mean, Aldo's almost been known as the king of leg kicks. However, if you watched his later fights in UFC, he kind of slowed down, because I think he had sustained a lot of injuries by kicking over the years.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's had quite a bit of a break now from kicking. He's been doing boxing and actually been doing well there. I just think Martinez is so hungry at the moment, though, and you saw that in his last fight and in his fights before that. And you asked the question, what's Aldo's motives for taking this fight? Because he was out of the game, he'd retired. This suggests to me he's here. This is the last fight on his contract officially as well, isn't it?
Yeah, last one is contract, exactly. They'll be official. Is it for a paycheck, do you reckon? Or
I think this is his last fight to fight off, and then he can go and fully submerge himself into boxing. I think he probably just wanted to get this out of the way, so he's not obligated with the UFC or under contract with them anymore.
Probably right, yeah. There might have been some sort of clause in there where he had to come back in order to actually do what he wanted to do elsewhere. But his heart's got to be in it, right? He's going to be fighting in front of his fellow countrymen. So surely he's going to want to do it in a big way, rather than, I'm done. Screw you guys.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely won't want to go out there and get embarrassed or lose. I wonder how much he's really putting into it, though. Because this, with all due respect to Jonathan Martinez, if he wins this fight, what does it do for it? It doesn't really do anything for him as such. He's not going to get a title shot off the back of it. I don't see him continuing in MMA, but it was a very weird announcement when it happened, and I'm still perplexed by it now, if I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, true. Do you think anything he's been working on over the last 2 years is actually going to be useful for him in this fight? Or, I mean, he's been away, he's been looking to get into boxing, but he's against a kicker. Do you know what I mean? Is it useless, all of what he's gained over the last 2 years, or?
If I'm going to be honest, I hope whatever he's gained from boxing in the last 2 years, he leaves in boxing, because the boxing range and the kicking range is such a different spectrum. We're talking about a lot of leeway here. Boxing range, you're effectively a jab away from your opponent.
Yeah,
Kicking range and kicking length is way different, and if you're in boxing range against a kicker, it's gonna be horrible, especially if you start in a boxing stance and you're heavy on your front leg and you start getting pieced up on that front leg, and then are you going to sit there in the same stance? If you switch, then the person knows you're hurt as well. You're not going to be as effective from an opposite stance. So I hope he goes back to the old Aldo and the MMA Aldo and not the
Yeah.
boxing Aldo, or else I think it's going to be a really rough night for him.
Yeah, he's going to have to get real close and physical. I think you kind of got crowd kickers, don't you? Be a full-on forwards threat or ever be wet out of there. You got to be wet out of dodge, elsewise. But stylistically, yeah, you got two kickers here, and no one's more experienced in the kicks than Jose Aldo, and no one's more lethal with those kicks than Martinez. But one would hope that it cancels each other out, as we've seen sometimes with two grapplers meet in the octagon. They just become strikers for 15 minutes. But so yeah, I've been wondering how that plays out. It's interesting nonetheless. But do you reckon, quickly, just looking at Martinez, if he would be starstruck in some way? Because this is the King of Rio returning for his final, his final hoo-ha. He's got his whole audience there as well. It's going to be a huge atmosphere. It's a big night. He's an absolute legend of sport. No doubt Martinez loves him as much as we all do. Do you think he'll be a bit starstruck, or that's just not going to happen to this guy?
I think he will be starstruck. I think it'd be crazy not to be starstruck.
Yeah, would you?
Not just as a Brazilian, but as an MMA fan.
Yeah,
Jose Aldo is like everything.
it's an honor. He's literally seeing him off.
Yeah, like this. It doesn't get any bigger than this. But I mean, we'll only know on the night. It's going to go one of two ways. It's going to be Pat Berry versus Mirko Krokop, or it's going to be DC versus Dan Henderson, where DC looked like he actually hated Dan Henderson. It wasn't his idol. Yeah. So if you approach it like DC, then we're going to have a good fight. If you approach it like Pat Berry and Mirko Krokop, then he's going to get battered by Aldo.
Yeah.
He'll have no mercy.
Yeah, I don't think Aldo is going to be one for mercy.
He has to be switched on.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's get those gauges up and see what people are saying in the chats as well. Co-main is up here, and we'll look at striking in just a second. But for now, we've got George Mary saying, I'm going for the new champ. That's his most confident pick. George Mary's most confident pick is going to be Erceg. So I just have to say Pantoja, and he's buying me two Chineses. Chinese, I don't know, it's the plural of Chinese. All right. Ash Easton says, will Aldo throw kicks? Big question mark. Yeah, I guess he probably said that just before we was discussing it. But yeah, that's something, that's a good question, because we've seen less of it as of late. I think he's going to be experienced enough to either avoid them or throw some of his own back in return. But I think, for someone who's got so much experience with kicks, he might have an answer for Martinez's. Because, that's not a question. Will Martinez throw kicks? Yeah, he will.
He better.
Yeah, he better do. Rice in the chat says, oi lads, cheers for Wichita, Kansas. From Wichita, Kansas. Okay, so Rice is over in Kansas. Hey, not bad. Thanks for chiming in, Rice. Thanks for coming down. It's good to have you on board, bro. Get on the Armor Reforger, lad. We're attacking Monty right now. Absolutely madhouse, lads. I just realized I don't think I speak Wichita, Kansas. I didn't quite catch what that one meant. Sounds like might be a drink, Armor Reforger. Fill us in, Rice. But otherwise, it sounds like you're having a cracking time, bro. And but yeah, we all will be having a cracking time come this weekend when 301 happens. Do jump back in for the watch long. We'll be doing that 3 a.m. our time over here in the UK on Sunday morning for the full main card anyway. Striking. What are you saying? Who gets that?
Oh, it's a tough one. I'm actually going to go Aldo.
Aldo, yeah. We kind of, part of me is out of respect. Do you know what I mean?
I think he'll have crisper boxing. And obviously his game is legendary, even if he doesn't use it as much now. I'm going to go striking Aldo.
Because you also got to bear in mind, striking does consider the kicks, like the variety of tools that you're going to bring to the fight. I might be tempted to even say this one would be Martinez. It is a tough one, agreed. I might even tempted to say Martinez because of how he weaponizes those kicks, and just how rapid he is.
Very true. Very true. I mean, we speak about Aldo's kicking game, but it's predominantly his leg kicks. We don't really see him teep and do push kicks as such. He does it now and again, but you wouldn't say he does it predominantly like an old Conor McGregor, for example.
Yeah.
But I do think his boxing has always been clean.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a tough one. It is a
It's
tough.
Let's go with that. Let's see if the numbers help us out. So on paper, of course, it suggests he does land. Martinez would land more per minute, suggesting significant strikes. Martinez as well, absorbed per minute. It's pretty much bang on even for both of them. So on paper, it would edge Martinez in
I can live
striking.
with that.
Otherwise, I could go either way, to be honest. Yeah, not much difference in average fight time either. What are we saying? Should we leave on Aldo?
No, I'm happy to go Martinez. I think that you got to pay respect to the stats sometimes.
Yeah, on paper. We'll go on paper, and then that way it's like, don't blame us. On paper it says so. You know what I mean? When it's so tight, it's like, right.
On us, yeah.
Exactly, yeah, go to check it out. It's the website. Grappling wise, who do you reckon will get that? It's not really a particular style for any of these guys, but who would use it more likely in this fight should it come to it?
I'm gonna say Aldo because I remember his fight against Marlon Chito Vera, where he leaned on his grappling, and it wasn't necessarily the most offensive grappling, but he managed to control him and get the win. And I think if he has to do that again, I think he can.
Yeah. I think you're probably right. If anyone's going to be able to use it effectively, Aldo would be a guy for it. And power? Who gets power?
Oh, I might actually go Martinez for this one at this point in their careers.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not just talking about punch and power, it's the leg kick power too.
That Giannis fight sticks with Rodgers.
Yeah, yeah.
To stop someone from leg kicks, you've got to be throwing a lot of power, and they just look brutal.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be violent for the crowd to be going from hit him to leave him alone, leave him alone.
The O's went to ooh.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You just
like,
switch. You know you're violent then. So that's some power. Martinez got that. All right, speed. Who's gonna have the speed advantage? Because for most matchups, I would say Aldo is fast, but also with just the factor of slowing down, of age and time, and I do know Martinez is just young and rapid.
He is. Maybe it's just me being biased. I think I'm gonna go Aldo still with the speed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm happy to do that. If out of respect for anything, but yeah. But cardio. Who gets cardio?
You gotta go Aldo. Cardio.
Yeah.
How many times with 5-round and 3-round?
He's been in those wars. He's been to the very ends, the beginning to the ends. Well, that's how it looks. Would you go Aldo on the night, or would you side with Martinez?
Martinez on the night. I think that hunger and that passion to win.
Yeah, and there's your X factor right there.
Yeah,
another thing you can't really measure or quantify.
Exactly, you can't measure it, but you can just sense it.
Yeah, you can see it there.
And this will be the biggest fight of his life. If he can get a win over Aldo in Brazil, in Rio, you tell your great grandkids about that, and their great grandkids will be told about it as well.
True.
So,
yeah, man.
I think you go Martinez.
He's a family man. Do you reckon you feel a bit dirty about, taking that from Aldo in his country? Do you feel like, I can't believe we've done it to Aldo? It's a bit...
I think he'll say that in public, but behind closed doors.
Yeah.
I think he'll walk around and be like, I'm the guy that retired Joe.
Yeah. I took this from you. Say something else. Rice chiming in there in the chats. He says, absolutely cracking. No, you are absolutely cracking, Rice. You are. All right, let's get back to the final fight then on the card. And we will be able to look at the main event, which is flyweight title bout for Alexandre Pantoja versus Steve Erceg. Cool. It's an interesting one, isn't it? Interesting one. Let's do that.
I remember when the fight was announced, everyone's like, what? Who?
Yeah. Why?
Yeah. And
why?
Just like, but the more you read into Erceg, the more you watch his fights, you see who he trains with. This has everything, all the ingredients here to be an upset.
Yeah.
All the ingredients to be, and if I'm not mistaken, is this the biggest sort of gap in the rankings between a challenger and a title holder since Bisping Henderson?
No, there would have been another one. For example, Pereira, Strickland and Izzy, for example. would have been one.
But where's
But
Where's Erceg
he's 10.
ranked?
Erceg is 10, I believe.
Strickland was ranked, I think, 6th when he fought Izzy.
He was, yeah.
I
And
think this
then
might be the
you've also
apart. I
got
mean, you had TJ. TJ took on a short notice fight when Borralho was weight cutting and fell over and got concussion, but I can't remember the fighter. And then you had Khabib and who did Khabib beat for the belt? Al Iaquinta as well.
oh yeah. But sometimes this does happen, as you rightly pointed out. But that's just because, you know, the title holder has wiped out the division, and that's exactly what Pantoja's done, basically, hasn't he? He's the guy that's go on. Sorry,
he's not fully wiped out the division, but the contenders have kind of wiped themselves out, or wiped each other out.
Yeah,
so it's not like the Holloway and Volkanovski situation where Volkanovski ran through the division and then Max ran through the division while Volkanovski couldn't get fights because Max was running through the fighters that were meant to be fighting him.
yeah.
It's kind of been Pantoja's beat the top guys, but the guys underneath the top guys are fighting each other, and then they're not building up enough winning streaks to get that fight as well or move up the rankings. So
yeah,
a bit of a weird division, that one.
Yeah, it really is, because we've got a lot of people who have been crying from the nosebleeds, and I've heard their cries in my sleep. They're saying, "What about Makayev?" You know, it's that kind of thing. And yeah, Muhammad Makayev, he got his last win, of course, against, it was Perez, wasn't it? But it wasn't convincing enough.
It was lackluster.
Yeah,
lackluster.
That's true. That's true. It wasn't convincing enough for me anyway, and it wasn't convincing enough for me to say or be confident that he would do what's needed to be done against Alexandre Pantoja. So whilst I think, yeah, look, Makayev's on paper in a better position and should be taking that fight, I also wouldn't mind him kind of working on a few things before it gets. I just don't think he's ready yet.
Yes, same.
But you know, looking at, you know, on that note, particularly for Erceg, do you think it's a little bit too much too soon for him? Because he just knocked out Matt Schnell, who's ranked 11. And so, you know, he's not done a lot else. It's not a significant thing to say, right, title shot. You know, I've seen enough. Get him in there with John Jones. You know what people have been saying these days. So do you think it might be a little bit too much too soon?
The reason why I'm going to say no is because of who he's around. Around Jack Della Maddalena, he's around Volkanovski. I think he's around Izzy quite a bit as well. I don't think he's going to be overawed by it all. And I know training in the gym and doing sparring is very different to being under the lights against a Pantoja in Brazil. I fully get that.
Yeah.
But I also think there has to be some sort of credibility in who you surround yourself with and who you're in the gym with on a daily basis. See the sort of what those three fighters especially go through. And I think he's going to take, I'm confident from knowing that he trains with them, he can hang with some of those guys, take that into this fight. So I don't think he's going to be overall.
You think so? Yeah, you do see it when, I mean, I've had it when I've seen Khabib rock up in someone's corner and all of a sudden I've changed my pick last minute. So, you know what I mean? So wait, what? Khabib's there? Okay, he's got it. He's got it. Yeah, he's got it. You know what I mean? I've definitely seen that. I'm guilty of that, and I don't regret doing that because, you know, they won, obviously. But okay. Well, let's put it this way then: if Erceg has a chance in this fight, how do you see him getting it done?
You put me on the spot.
Yeah, I mean, let's discuss it, right? It's not going to go. If I get grappling numbers up here, it's not going to be on the ground. He's got to avoid that like the plague. He's got to have the urgency to stand to his feet. But does he kind of catch Pantoja in those scrambles or on the break? Could that be?
Pantoja's so well rounded. I mean, you
really
saw him in there with Moreno. Moreno gave him everything he had.
Yeah.
And he just ate it. He almost just took it on the chin, like, what's this? What, like, it almost in disgust, as if to say, you'll hit me with your hardest shot, thinking it's going to do me something. And it's like, we've seen Moreno put down Figgy and Kai France, but Pantoja's eating shots for days like it's nothing.
Yeah, he was possessed.
Yeah, but it's not just him we've seen that against. He's just got a good chin, and he's so durable. His cardio is off the chain.
It is.
Against Royval. I mean, we saw Royval against Moreno in the improved version of him. Royval couldn't do anything
Nah.
against Pantoja. It was a complete shutout.
Yeah.
So it means Erceg for me, it's got to be combinations. You've got to catch him with stuff that he's not expecting. You've got to break Pantoja's rhythm.
Yeah.
You can't be standing in front of Pantoja. You've got to be creating angles, and anytime he comes in, you got to threaten, whether it be an uppercut, a knee. You may have to just take it to the cage and maybe have your back up against the cage so he can't take you down in open space as well. But I think it's going to have to be the striking if you're going to get Pantoja out there. I just don't know if anyone's got the power in that division to take him out.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to the next question. Do you think that Erceg's got more power then, of course, than is those who've tried and failed before, like Moreno, Royval? I guess, is he more powerful? He's been knocking people out.
He may be more powerful.
Is it enough?
I don't know if he's as quick as those guys.
True. Yeah, I wouldn't put him quicker than the likes of Moreno and Royval. No, it's a good point. Well, I guess it's. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. I did see a post from Caio on Twitter earlier today where he basically was talking about this. He was talking about how he's number 6. He hasn't had his shot. And of course, you got Erceg, who has, of course. And we've been talking about it all stream. But what do you think is next for Pantoja should he get this win? Do you think, who do we feed him next?
I think it has to be Mikhaev. I think the reason Mikhaev didn't get this fight is because the turnaround would have been quite quick for Mikhaev. I think the UFC probably thought, and the fact that his last performance wasn't that amazing as well. Like he got the W, but you wouldn't say he blew anyone away at that performance. And if we're gonna go by the UFC like recent history, if you have a good performance, that's when you get pushed, as opposed to just winning fights.
Yeah.
So I think Mikhaev is definitely next, though, if Pantoja comes through. He has to be. It'll be crazy if he's not.
Yeah, that's true. He surely. I wonder who else there would be up there. I did have a picture, actually. Didn't end up getting it loaded up in time, but I wonder who else there would be in the mix to even consider. But
I don't know. Moreno's taking a sabbatical. He's beating Royval. I think it is Mikhaev.
It's got to be that guy. Okay, let's get the gauges up and let's have a look what the people are saying in the chats, and then we can wrap up the show for that as well. George Murray says Sunday never tasted so good. He's convinced he's going to be getting that that Chinese off of me for picking Erceg in this one. And he also says Usman versus Masvidal 1. I'm not sure he's referencing there. Probably the way the fight's going to turn out.
Oh, is that discrepancy in rankings? Maybe.
Maybe.
Even then, Masvidal was ranked top 5 because he had just beaten Askren.
Yeah, he would have been up there.
Askren came into the division at around 5 or 6.
So even then, it wouldn't have been the one. But there's been a few a bit like that. Usman didn't really clean up the division. He just kept fighting the same people over and over again, which was a bit like what Makhachev's been doing lately as well, to be fair.
Yeah. Oh, well, not 4 or 55er and as a title defense. One, so.
you literally got one job, and that's stop doing other people's jobs.
Yeah, exactly.
Do your job.
Yeah. Amazing to see what happens with that.
And then George Murray says everyone else in top 10 either was booked or injured, so they chose who made a better statement. And they kind of
Bazzi picked up an injury as well, didn't he?
Yeah,
that was meant to be him versus Moreno before.
I reckon it could be a cute narrative if, let me play it out, Erceg gets the win against Pantoja. Pantoja's fairly injured, or it's like a freak win.
Yeah.
And they want to run it back, but then Mikhaev steps in and fights Erceg, like an interim perhaps, or something like that. And then Pantoja comes back and fights the winner for the divisional belt or something. It's a cute narrative. It could happen.
Yeah. I like it.
But yeah. It's it might be far fetched, but if that does, you better believe I'm clipping this right here and
taking all the credit.
We're taking that. Okay, cool. That's brilliant. So that's basically is some of the chats over there. So let's talk about striking on this run. Who gets it? Is it going to be Pantoja or is it going to be Steve Erceg? Who's going to have the advantage? I would probably have to go Erceg, although just because it's his tool to win, he's not going to have the grappling. It's just how he's going to do it.
Yeah, do you know, I will as well, because I think Pantoja does a good job of disguising his striking through his wrestling and grappling. So yeah, I'll go Erceg.
Yeah, and Pantoja's striking is violent. Yeah. Grappling, I guess we can quickly pop that in there for Pantoja. He's got that one. Power, I think would have to say if anyone's going to have it, it's got to be Erceg, huh?
Yeah, you'd think so.
And then speed.
Erceg again.
I've seen, looking at Moreno, right, using him as a sort of yardstick to go by. Yeah. Moreno is fast, and I was impressed at how quick Pantoja was against Moreno.
I agree. I think Pantoja's got fantastic timing as opposed to fantastic speed.
Timing's the word. Timing's the word. It's great.
He's got fantastic. So even you look at the times where Moreno was starting to get a bit of momentum going, he just knew when to go for the single leg or the double leg. And his timing on that, I think his timing is immaculate. I don't know if his speed is that great though, or better than Erceg.
So Erceg with speed, then perhaps.
Crazy that we're putting more ticks for us.
Well, cardio is going to be for Pantoja. Yeah. Pantoja gets. I mean, he could even get striking too. He could, in theory, get striking too. We could probably toss it over to the other side. I think we'd have to make an argument for that. But when you look at this fight and how it plays out, let's see who's got more significant strikes. It does side on paper. Erceg has more significant strikes. That's because he doesn't really have that kind of grappling style to his game, and of course with Pantoja he would. So landed per minute, it sides with Erceg. Although, with Pantoja as well, he does have a good significant striking differential there too. Interesting. Wins by knockouts. Yeah, more knockouts are for Pantoja. 9% of his wins are by knockout. About the same fighting time as well. Submissions. Actually, that's interesting. I don't know if I want to trust these stats anymore. Apparently, submissions does favor Steve Erceg. He's got 55% of his wins come by submission, and Pantoja's 37% of his wins come by submissions.
Oh,
yeah, I don't know how that works.
Very interesting.
Yeah. Pinch of salt with that, but this is how it looks on the night. I would go with Pantoja, but the more I look at this matchup, the more I've looked at this matchup, the more I've been, ooh. Yeah. My head's been turned a bit, and I'm thinking there can be something disgusting happening on the weekend.
There's something. I'm a bit like you. There's something in my mind going, Erceg. Yeah. But the bigger part of my brain is going, bro, fix up, man. It's Pantoja. What are we doing there? So I'm gonna go with this. And look, I'm not a betting man. If I was a betting man, I'd actually put money on Erceg because the returns could be crazy.
Yeah.
But if you want to have a safe bet, got to be Pantoja. It just has to be. For me, he has so many routes to victory.
Yeah, that's it, right?
He knows how to get it done. He's been doing this for such a long time now.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. I'll probably go with Pantoja, and he's also just been trying to keep active. You know, you can see how he's won. He's staying hot, he's staying active. He wants anyone, and he's picked out Erceg because he's the next possible candidate. And I don't think he's going to take it easy or lightly. I think he's going to give him the very best that he's got, but he just wants to get as many title defenses under his belt as possible to build on a legacy. And so he wants to add this to that. And I remember the days when people were really racking up like defenses 8, 6, 7 long, but it seems to be changing hands a lot lately.
And not just going up in weight class and trying to get champ status.
Trying to get like double belts now,
Crazy.
Do your jobs,
Bring back the good old days.
The good old days. All right. Well, that actually wraps it up. That would be the end of the breakdown. That kind of comes down to closing. And after looking at the card, your potential fight tonight, would it still remain the same? You said Kai Borralho and Paul Craig potentially. You still think that's going to have some potential in it?
Yeah.
Yep. Paul Craig doing something real surprising that makes us all go.
On my face now, and it's just a lackluster opening fight.
That's fine. But I mean, there's some good picks in there, good potential in there. I think that the co-main or even main could be well worth the wait. Personally, although I also do like the idea that they're putting this fight in Brazil with Brazilian fighters, where they're kind of going to be matched up favorably towards their styles and getting a win done. So I wonder if they've seen something that we have not. But that's going to happen this weekend. So that's going to be on Saturday. We're going to be doing the full watch long for that as well over here in the Hyde at ATF. We're going to have Ash up here. So me, JK, and Ash could be on the couch giving you guys the full content for the full main card. So that's everything we've talked about today. And, I want to say massive thanks to the Sanderson Show who could join us for this breakdown. I want to say massive thanks to the fact that you could be here, share some of your knowledge, and just be an absolute gift or treat to the audience here that enjoy and watch this content week in and week out. Do you have anything you'd want to share yourself, or would you want to have the floor for good 10 seconds?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to you guys for inviting me. I've watched your channel. I'm a fan of your channel. I take inspiration from your channel. So to get the message from you guys that you'd even consider one working with, it's humbling. I'm very grateful and I appreciate it. And I mean, even behind the scenes, you guys have been nothing but amazing as well. So I just want to let the people know who do support you guys. You're supporting some very good people there, and continue. And
Thanks,
let's get these guys even bigger than they are. They deserve it.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you, man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you, honestly, Callum. Really do. Thanks so much. Something we always say over here is don't watch alone, watch along. You were supposed to say that bit, but
sorry.
I was waiting for you. We'll try it again. Don't watch alone.
Watch along.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Just left me here like crickets. No, this is fun. We should do it again sometime, man. But look, that's the 100%. Breakdown for 301. I enjoy myself, and I think this fight is going to be great. So you guys do turn up on Saturday, where we'll be streaming it live here in the UK, 3 a.m. on Sunday morning. And I believe that's going to be over in the States around 10 p.m. and then 7 as well on the PT. So if you're Pacific time, a bit further along. All right, guys, time to say goodbye. Love, peace, and chicken grease.